The Disappearance in Koti, the housemaid who returned after 7 years, 2005. Koti, a place where narrow alleyways weave into crowded markets, and the air hangs thick with noise, colors, and whispers. It's the kind of neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, or at least they think they do. But in 2005, a strange silence descended upon Koti, a silence born from a disappearance that made no sense. A housemaid, known for her routine and reliability, simply vanished. No witness saw her leave. No neighbor heard anything unusual. No clue was left behind. It was as if a door opened somewhere, and she slipped into a different world. Her employers were baffled. Her family was terrified. Rumors began swirling immediately. Rumors of desperation, conflict, hidden suffering. But the more people talked, the stranger the story became. Every person who claimed to know her revealed a different version of who she was. A quiet woman with no troubles. A restless soul hiding secrets. A victim of someone's anger. Or someone planning an escape. The police tried to trace her steps, but every lead evaporated. Every trail turned to dust. Nothing made sense. Nothing connected. And soon, her disappearance transformed into one of those eerie mysteries people only whispered about. 7 years passed, and then, without warning, she reappeared. Just walked back in her old neighborhood as if time had paused and waited for her. She said she had been suffering, hiding, trying to survive. But her story was thin, a patchwork of half-truths, gaps, and contradictions. Where was she for 7 years? Why didn't she contact anyone? Who helped her or controlled her? And why did her return feel even more mysterious than her disappearance? Her answers raised more questions. Her expression revealed little, and her silence spoke volumes. Tonight, on Mystery Vault 80, we open the door to a case that has puzzled investigators, divided a community, and left behind an unsettling question. How can someone vanish completely, only to reappear with a story that solves nothing? Before we dive in, make sure to like, share, and comment your theories below. Your support keeps this vault of mysteries open, and every thought you share helps us explore deeper into the unexplained. Now, let's step into the shadows of Koti and follow the footsteps of a disappearance that continues to haunt everyone who remembers it. The housemaid who walked out of sight. Koti is a place of noise, constant, overwhelming, unavoidable. But the morning Lakshmi vanished, the noise felt strangely hollow. People went about their routines, unaware that something inexplicable had just occurred in their midst. For Lakshmi, a woman defined by discipline and predictability, nothing about her disappearance made sense. She followed the same early morning route every day, stepping out of her small rented room, crossing the narrow lane, passing the fruit vendor, and then turning into the main road toward her employer's house. But on that day, she didn't arrive. She didn't come to work. She didn't return home. She didn't appear anywhere else. It was as if she had been erased. Her neighbors recalled the evening before her disappearance. Lakshmi had returned earlier than usual, walked silently to her room, and stayed inside for a long time. Some claimed to have heard soft crying. Another neighbor said she saw Lakshmi pacing outside her room under the dim streetlight, her shadow long and restless. But none of those details prepared anyone for what came next. Inside her room, everything was neatly in place, except her work bag, the one item always with her. The missing bag became the first mystery in a chain of deeper, darker puzzles. The landlord insisted he heard no disturbance that night. No arguments. No footsteps. No one visiting her. Yet one tiny clue unsettled everyone. Her room's padlock wasn't latched the way she usually locked it. It wasn't fully shut. It was gently looped, almost as if she intended to return soon. Was it a sign of confidence? Or a sign of haste? Her employer's family couldn't understand it. Lakshmi wasn't the type to leave suddenly. She relied on the job, needed the income, and was known for her unwavering loyalty. But what if her quiet composure had been hiding silent storms? As the day wore on, whispers grew in the neighborhood. She wasn't herself lately. She looked scared that evening. She said she had something troubling her mind. Police tried to piece together her last known movements, but the truth was stranger than fiction. The fruit vendor claimed he saw her sitting at the bus stop the previous evening, staring into the distance, holding her bag tightly, as if debating a decision she wasn't ready to make. Then she stood up, walked toward the inner lanes, and vanished from sight. No one saw who she met. No one saw where she went. No one heard a cry, a struggle, or a plea. It was the kind of disappearance that didn't feel like a disappearance at all. It felt like a transition, like she stepped out of one world and into another. And yet, something about the scene felt incomplete, scripted, unsettled. The more investigators looked, the more they felt the absence of clues was itself a clue. Welcome to the first chapter of a mystery that would lie dormant for 7 long years. A disappearance that made no noise, but left behind an echo that would only grow louder. Her hidden struggles. To solve the mystery of Lakshmi's disappearance, we must journey into the quiet spaces of her life. The parts she never shared openly, the worries she tucked beneath her sorry pleats, the fears she carried silently through the streets of Koti. On the surface, she appeared unremarkable, the kind of presence that blends into the everyday rhythm of a bustling neighborhood. But the people who crossed paths with her began revealing small fragments of a bigger, darker picture. Her closest acquaintance, another maid named Radha, recalled a moment that now feels loaded with meaning. A few weeks before the disappearance, Lakshmi sat alone on the steps outside a temple at dusk, staring into the distance. When Radha approached, Lakshmi said something cryptic. Sometimes the people you trust the most can hurt you in ways you never expect. At the time, Radha brushed it off, believing it was just exhaustion speaking. But after Lakshmi vanished, those words became chilling. Others remembered strange behaviors too. The tea vendor near her lane said she seemed jumpy the previous week, turning quickly when someone called her name, as if she expected trouble. A shopkeeper said she once entered his store looking pale and frightened, buying nothing, then leaving hurriedly. What had frightened her? Who was she trying to avoid? And why did no one press further? Her family added another layer to the puzzle. According to her younger sister, Lakshmi had started sending slightly more money home, but her earnings hadn't increased. Something didn't add up. Was she receiving money from someone else? Making payments to someone? Or was she desperately trying to save for an escape? Then came the detail that deepened the mystery. Lakshmi had asked her mother if she could return home soon. But before the family could arrange anything, she suddenly stopped talking about it. Had something, or someone, changed her mind? Several neighbors remembered hearing muffled crying from her room on multiple nights. She would emerge the next morning pretending everything was normal, but her eyes betrayed sleeplessness and hidden anxiety. The mystery was growing, not shrinking. And then there was the envelope. A neighbor claimed to have seen Lakshmi carrying a small brown envelope one afternoon. An envelope she tucked quickly into her bag when noticed. What was inside it? A letter? Money? A threatening message? No one would ever know, because the envelope vanished along with her. Every clue pointed toward a woman living in quiet turmoil, a woman trapped between fear and expectation, silence and survival. The people around her sensed something was wrong, yet no one realized how dangerously wrong it truly was. As Chapter 2 closes, we are left with the unsettling truth that mysteries rarely begin on the day someone disappears. Often, they begin long before, woven through whispered fears, subtle changes, and secrets no one dared to speak aloud. Lakshmi was carrying a secret, and whatever that secret was, it walked out the door with her the day she vanished. Investigators hit a wall. The moment Lakshmi vanished, the police believed this would be a simple case, a misunderstanding, a voluntary departure, perhaps a personal dispute. But as the investigation unfolded, something became clear. Nothing about her disappearance made sense. Clue after clue, that led nowhere. Investigators began with the basics, retracing her last known movements. The bus stop sighting was confirmed. The inner lane she walked into was identified. But after that point, every trail dissolved into thin air. There were no footprints, no witnesses, no unusual sounds, no signs that she left Koti by vehicle or foot. It was as if the busy streets swallowed her whole. The circle of witnesses. Each witness revealed a different version of Lakshmi's emotional state. The fruit seller, she looked worried. The tea vendor, she was restless. The neighbor, she cried at night. Her employer, she was perfectly fine. Her coworker, she was scared of someone. Which version was true? Or were they all fragments of one fractured truth? Mysteries often grow from the inconsistencies in human memory, and Lakshmi's disappearance was no exception. The man in the shadows. Several people mentioned a man Lakshmi feared, a visitor at the employer's home. But who was he? Why did he unsettle her? And why did he claim he barely knew her? His behavior during questioning was peculiar. He avoided eye contact, answered vaguely, became irritated when press couldn't confirm his whereabouts during certain hours. Was he connected? Or was he merely another ripple in an already turbulent puzzle? The envelope, no one could explain. One neighbor's memory stood out more than the others. 2 days before she disappeared, Lakshmi carried a brown envelope. She looked anxious when she noticed me. This detail transformed the case from confusing to enigmatic. What was in the envelope? A letter? Money? A threat? A secret she wanted to hide? The envelope was never recovered. The room that meant something. Her room told its own story. A story of a woman who hadn't planned a long-term departure. Her spare clothes were still folded, her savings remained untouched. The room wasn't ransacked, only the work bag was missing. The small, imperfectly latched lock felt symbolic, like a door left half open, a chapter unfinished. No pattern, no timeline, no explanation. The strangest part? There was no clear motive, no quarrel, no debt dispute, no evidence of a crime. In the absence of motive, investigators rely on behavior. And Lakshmi's behavior painted a picture of someone caught between fear and indecision, someone preparing for something, yet uncertain. The investigation freezes. By the end of the week, the police realized they weren't dealing with a simple disappearance. They were chasing shadows, overlapping testimonies, incomplete truths, and details that felt intentionally obscured. Was Lakshmi hiding from someone, running to something, or trapped in a situation none of them understood? Chapter 3 closes with investigators standing at the crossroads of reality and illusion, unsure which version of Lakshmi's life was the real one and which was the mask she wore. And without clarity, the case slipped into silence. Hidden lives and unspoken truths begin to surface. For days, investigators struggled to understand the contradictions surrounding Lakshmi's disappearance. But as they dug deeper into her background, a different pattern began to emerge, one that suggested Lakshmi's life was far more complex than anyone initially realized. Behind her quiet demeanor lived a network of secrets, pressures, fears, and relationships that no one had fully understood, or perhaps no one chose to acknowledge. A life of two worlds. Lakshmi's existence stretched between two realities. The employer's household, where she was seen as dependable, obedient, and calm. Her private life, tucked away in a small rented room, filled with handwritten notes, unsent letters, and receipts that hinted at emotional and financial stress. Photographs found in her belongings suggested she maintained connections that her employers had no idea existed, including friends from her village, an older couple she helped occasionally, and a young man whose identity remained unclear. The 3 names she had. Investigators discovered Lakshmi had been using different variations of her name in different places, a common practice among migrant workers, but notable when viewed through the lens of a disappearance. One name for her employer, another for her landlord, a shortened version in her bank passbook. It wasn't fraud, but it created confusion, and confusion was fertile ground for misdirection. Which version of Lakshmi's life vanished that night? Financial strains and mysterious withdrawals. Though she earned modest wages, Lakshmi sent money home religiously. But in the month leading up to her disappearance, something changed. Her bank book showed small deposits, sudden withdrawals, gaps unexplained by her employer or family. The strange part wasn't the amounts, it was the pattern. Withdrawals were made from a location Lakshmi rarely visited, raising the possibility that she was under pressure someone had access to her bank card or she was saving money for a secret purpose. When investigators questioned her family, they admitted she had recently expressed fear about money falling into the wrong hands. What did she mean? And who had she been referring to? The silent confidant. One person stood out in the inquiry, a temple volunteer Lakshmi often visited. She had never mentioned him to the employer, nor to her landlord. To some, that meant nothing. To investigators, it meant everything. This man said Lakshmi was deeply troubled, feeling watched, and afraid she might bring shame to her family. When pressed about what she meant, he hesitated. His vague responses raised questions. Was he hiding something? Protecting someone? Or simply trying to avoid involvement in a police investigation? A pattern of fear emerges. For the first time, a cohesive picture began taking shape. Lakshmi wasn't just unhappy or stressed. She was clearly afraid. Fear shows itself in patterns. Changing her route to work, avoiding certain streets, locking her door, twice asking for salary advances, seeking spiritual comfort, crying alone, according to neighbors, carrying a mysterious brown envelope. Fear was the thread connecting all of these actions. But fear of what? Secrets her family did not know. When investigators reached her village, they uncovered something unexpected, a dispute involving her relatives over land and debt. Though it didn't directly implicate Lakshmi, there were hints she might have been communicating with someone tied to that dispute. A cousin claimed Lakshmi had been receiving calls from a man who wanted her to do something. No one could confirm what that something was. If true, this meant Lakshmi's disappearance wasn't rooted in her life in Koti, but in problems that followed her from home. The strange visitor. Several locals mentioned seeing an unfamiliar man near her rented room in the days before she vanished. He waited outside her lane more than once, pretending to check his phone, pacing, looking restless. No one knew his name. No one recognized his face. No one saw him again after the disappearance. The description did not match any of the known suspects. Who was he? A friend? A debt collector? A lover? A threat? This unidentified figure became the ghost within the investigation, a shadow without form, leaving behind impressions but no evidence. A life she tried to escape. Looking at all the clues together, investigators realized Lakshmi had been preparing for something. Perhaps an escape, perhaps a confrontation, perhaps an end to a cycle of fear. Her actions hinted at a woman torn between duty and self-preservation, someone burdened by guilt or threat, someone trying to gather courage for a decision she was not ready to voice. She had one foot in the life she lived and another in the life she wanted to leave behind. But then, she disappeared. Lakshmi did not vanish suddenly. She had been slowly withdrawing, step by step, from a life that was closing in on her. Her disappearance was not the start of the mystery. It was the climax of a silent struggle unfolding behind closed doors. The more investigators learned, the clearer it became. To find Lakshmi, they needed to understand the threats she never dared to name. The night of the disappearance, timeline of vanishing. To understand what happened to Lakshmi, investigators had to reconstruct every moment of the night she vanished, a task that seemed simple at first, until the details began to clash, overlap, contradict, and fall apart. What should have been a straightforward timeline quickly transformed into a maze of uncertainty. The night Lakshmi disappeared was a night filled with shadows, and shadows have a habit of hiding truths. The last confirmed sightings. The evening began like any other. Small Orange Diamond, 6:30 p.m., leaving work. Lakshmi signed off her duties at the employer's home. She was calm but unusually quiet, according to the family. She refused tea, grabbed her small cloth bag, and left earlier than normal. Small Orange Diamond, 6:45 p.m., the neighbor's glimpse. A neighbor near the employer's house claimed she saw Lakshmi walking fast, looking over her shoulder. A subtle, but telling detail. Lakshmi was clutching her bag tightly, as if afraid someone might grab it. Small Orange Diamond, 7 p.m., the shopkeeper's account. A shopkeeper near her rented room confirmed she bought a packet of biscuits. She seemed distracted. She didn't greet him. She didn't smile. He said. It was like she wasn't really there. It would be the last confirmed sighting. The window of approximate disappearance, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Investigators believe Lakshmi vanished within this critical hour. Why? Because every clue, every possible sighting, every statement from neighbors falls into this small, tight window. 7:15 p.m., lights on, then off. A neighbor living opposite her rented room reported something odd. Lakshmi's light was switched on briefly, then turned off after a few minutes, and no movement inside, and no sound. Did she return home? Or did someone else enter her room? No one could say for sure. The disturbing audio clue. One neighbor later reported hearing something unusual near 7:30 p.m. A soft thud, a muffled argument, like two people talking harshly, then silence. It could have been unrelated, but in a disappearance case, nothing is irrelevant. The police dismissed it initially. Later, they realized it might have been the most crucial piece of audio evidence. A stranger in the lane. Around the same time, a rickshaw puller saw an unfamiliar man standing near Lakshmi's lane. The description matched the earlier mysterious figure spotted days before her disappearance. Medium build, nervous posture, pacing with agitation. The rickshaw puller recalled. He kept checking his watch, like he was waiting for someone or something. Was he waiting for Lakshmi? Was he watching her? Or was he part of a chain of events that night? The brown envelope, last time seen. Lakshmi was seen carrying the brown envelope earlier that evening, the one she had guarded for days. But when investigators searched her room later, it was gone. The envelope vanished with her. That alone added a new layer to the night. Whatever was in that envelope may have been the motive, the trigger, or the danger she was running from. The empty room clue. Police entered her room. What they found was strange. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was broken, no signs of struggle. Her shoes were placed neatly. Her water pot was full. Her clothes were untouched. It looked as if she had stepped out for a moment and never returned. But two things were missing. Her cloth bag, the brown envelope. These were the only items that vanished with her. Conflicting witness statements. This chapter of the investigation is often the most chaotic. Everyone wants to help, but memory is fragile, and fear clouds clarity. The police collected witness statements. One person claimed they saw her near a bus stand at 7:45 p.m. Another insisted she was walking toward the temple around 8:00 p.m. That a third believed they heard her scream. That a fourth said they saw nothing at all. Which statements were true? Which were imagination? Which were influenced by rumor? Every version pointed in a different direction. The mystery of that night grew deeper. A missing call record. Investigators later discovered Lakshmi had received a phone call earlier that evening, around 5:50 p.m. before leaving work. But the number was switched off after 6 p.m. had no registered name, was active for only 12 days before the disappearance, was shut down permanently the next morning. A burner phone. Someone contacted her. Someone she knew. Someone who didn't want to be traced. This call might have shaped her actions that night. The two theories that emerged. By the end of Chapter 5, investigators were working with two main possibilities. Possibility 1, voluntary disappearance. Lakshmi may have planned to run, taken her bag, an envelope switched off her room lights, and vanished into the night. This theory suggested fear pushed her into hiding. Possibility 2, forced removal. Someone may have followed her home, confronted her near or inside her lane, taken the envelope, and abducted her quietly. This theory suggested she was silenced. Both theories match the timeline. Both theories fit the evidence. Neither theory could be proven. The final moments we cannot see. This chapter ends with the haunting understanding that the night Lakshmi disappeared will never be fully reconstructed. No CCTV cameras. No solid witness. No clear motive. Only fragments of a life vanishing into dark corners of a quiet lane. We know when she disappeared. We know roughly how the evening unfolded, but we still don't know why or by whom. For investigators, the night remained a puzzle with pieces that didn't fit. For Lakshmi, it was the moment her life slipped beyond the reach of the living world and into the realm of mystery and crime. Suspects, shadows, and shifting accusations. With the timeline of Lakshmi's disappearance still blurry, investigators widened their focus, not just on the night she vanished, but on the people who might have had a motive, an opportunity, or a connection strong enough to pull her into danger. What began as a missing person case soon transformed into a web of suspects, each with their own secrets and reasons to lie. 1. The employer's family, innocent or involved. At first glance, they seemed unlikely suspects. They paid her on time, treated her fairly, and appeared genuinely distressed. But as investigators dug deeper, subtle red flags began to appear. Inconsistencies in the timeline they provided. One family member said Lakshmi left at 6 p.m. Another insisted it was after 7. A third couldn't remember whether she took her uniform that day. Small contradictions, yet critical in a disappearance case. The strange comment from the employer's son. He casually mentioned that Lakshmi had been acting strange, but did not elaborate. Investigators asked, "What did you mean?" He froze, stumbled, then said he couldn't remember. It wasn't evidence, but it was unsettling. Were they hiding something? Or simply overwhelmed by the pressure of interrogation? 2. The landlord, the man with the missing keys. Lakshmi's landlord was quiet, guarded, and nervous when questioned. At first, investigators thought it was just anxiety. Then they discovered a troubling detail. He kept a spare key to her room, and when asked to produce it, he couldn't find it. He claimed he misplaced it months ago, but neighbors contradicted him. One insisted she saw him open Lakshmi's room door recently. Why was he entering her room? Was he checking on repairs? Or checking on her belongings? His evasiveness deepened suspicion. 3. The mysterious caller, the burner number. Chapter 6 gave investigators their first true lead. The phone call Lakshmi received before leaving work. The number belonged to no one. Registered with fake documents. Active for less than 2 weeks. Turned off forever the morning after she vanished. Whoever called her knew she would answer, knew she would be alone, knew exactly when to reach her. This was not a random telemarketer. This was someone intimately woven into Lakshmi's life. A secret connection, a hidden debt, a private relationship, or a threat. The burner phone was proof of intent. 4. The unidentified man in the lane. Multiple sightings placed a stranger near Lakshmi's home days before her disappearance. Description: medium height, thin, dark, shirt, restless demeanor. He was seen watching her lane, standing near her room, asking a child for directions, one day disappearing instantly when spotted the next. No one recognized him. No one knew his name. He left no trace. Police brought in dozens of men for lineups. None matched. This unidentified man became a ghost in the investigation, someone who existed only in fragmented eyewitness accounts. Was he a stalker, a debt collector, a blackmailer, a jealous partner, or a messenger for someone more dangerous? 5. The temple volunteer, protector, or manipulator. He was the only one who said Lakshmi was afraid. He was also the only one who claimed she confided in him. Investigators found this suspicious. What he said: "She told me she made a big mistake." But when asked what that mistake was, he refused to elaborate. What he didn't say: he visited her lane often, he called her multiple times, neighbors saw him near her room weeks before the disappearance. He swore it was all coincidence. Investigators didn't believe in coincidences. 6. The employer's driver, the man with a temper. A new suspect emerged unexpectedly. While questioning staff, police learned that the employer's driver had argued with Lakshmi multiple times, been seen shouting at her near the gate. A history of aggressive behavior, a reputation for harassing younger women. When investigators visited his home, he was unusually defensive. "I don't know anything. She left alive. Ask someone else." He refused to explain the arguments. He refused to share his movements on the night. He refused to hand over his phone initially. A man refusing cooperation is always a man worth investigating. 7. The family back home. Their silence was loud. When investigators visited Lakshmi's village, something felt off. Her family was tense, confused, not asking enough questions, quick to distance themselves, evasive when discussing her financial troubles. One cousin said she was mixed up with someone. She didn't tell us who. Another insisted She wanted to leave everything behind. Two conflicting stories, both suspicious. And then investigators found a clue. A letter Lakshmi wrote, but never sent, addressed to her sister, hinting at pressure from someone back home. The letter ended abruptly, as if someone interrupted her while writing. 8. A crime without a crime scene. Although Lakshmi herself was gone, the true difficulty was this. There was no body, no blood, no weapon, no sign of struggle, no CCTV, no forensic evidence, and no clear suspect. Every lead dissolved into speculation. Each suspect had motive fragments, partial alibis, contradictions, nervous behaviors. But nothing was conclusive. Lakshmi had vanished cleanly. Too cleanly. Clean disappearances rarely happen by chance. They happen by design. 9. Rumors spread and muddy the truth. As days passed, theories flooded the neighborhood. She ran away with a lover. She was kidnapped by a relative. She was silenced over debt. She was harmed by the employer. She was taken by someone she trusted. She left to escape village disputes. She was trafficked. She was murdered. The problem with rumors? People begin to believe them. Then they begin to repeat them. Soon, they replace facts entirely. By the end of Chapter 6, investigators were drowning in lies mixed with half-truths. 10. One chilling realization. Despite all the suspects, all the theories, and all the leads, one truth remained. Every suspect had the opportunity. Every suspect had a possible motive. And every suspect had something to hide. Asterisk, asterisk. This wasn't a disappearance caused by chance. This was a disappearance surrounded by people who knew more than they admitted. Lakshmi didn't just vanish into thin air. Someone helped her vanish, or someone made her vanish, until investigators could determine which. The case remained a labyrinth with no exit. The evidence that refused to speak. By Chapter 7, the disappearance of Lakshmi had shifted from a local mystery into a full-blown investigation stretching across Koti and her home village. Every lead, however, seemed frustratingly incomplete. The harder investigators searched, the more the case resisted clarity. Evidence was scarce, contradictory, or frustratingly silent. 1. The missing bag and envelope. Clues without answers. 2 items remained the centerpiece of the investigation. Lakshmi's cloth bag, where she kept her meager belongings, the brown envelope. The mysterious item she guarded with unusual vigilance. Despite exhaustive searches, the bag never surfaced. The envelope was nowhere to be found. Neighbors had only vague recollections of seeing her with them. Both were critical and both silent. They refused to answer the most basic questions. Where had they gone? Who had taken them? And what did they contain? 2. Traces of distress. Though physical evidence was minimal, behavioral clues began to emerge. Neighbors remembered glimpses of fear in her eyes, hurried footsteps, and unusual nervousness. Friends recalled sudden withdrawn behavior, cryptic phrases like "I can't tell anyone" and "I'm scared for my family." These traces were intangible, but investigators treated them as evidence of an escalating threat, a warning she couldn't fully articulate. 3. Conflicting testimonies. Every statement collected added layers of confusion. Employer. Lakshmi appeared calm and content. Landlord. She expressed mild anxiety. Nothing more. Coworker. She seemed terrified of someone at the employer's home. Temple volunteer. She confided secrets of fear and threat. Reconciling these accounts became impossible. Each witness offered a version of reality that partially overlapped, yet no two fully matched. Investigators realized the evidence didn't just refuse to speak, it actively contradicted itself. 4. The burner phone, a ghost in the system. The mysterious phone call from a night of her disappearance was both tantalizing and maddening. The number existed for only 12 days. It was switched off the morning after her disappearance. It had no registered identity. Call records provided only timestamps, no voice recordings. This digital phantom became a critical focus. Whoever used that phone had premeditated access to her in an exit strategy that left no trace. Every investigation path converged on the realization. Someone orchestrated her disappearance with planning and precision. 5. Forensic limitations. Police searched her room, workplace, and the surrounding streets for traces. Footprints, only hers, leading to her room fingerprints. No unknown prints door locks. Intact, no signs of forced entry windows. Closed, no signs of tampering. In short, the crime scene was impeccably clean. Whoever intervened knew exactly how to erase themselves. 6. Searching the village, dead ends. Investigators traveled to Lakshmi's village to look for potential contacts, threats, or hidden motives. There, they uncovered letters she wrote, but never sent, conversations she had with relatives hinting at pressure from someone unknown, rumors of disputes over money or responsibilities. Yet, none of these provided a direct lead. Each clue only deepened the mystery, threads pointing everywhere, yet nowhere at the same time. 7. Patterns of fear and control. When combined, the scattered evidence revealed a pattern. Fear, visible in her behavior secrets, what she confided to a few trusted individuals, threat, hinted in cryptic phrases and burner phone contact, disappearance, executed with precision, leaving almost no trace. This pattern suggested that the disappearance was deliberate, planned, and targeted. It was not random. It was not accidental. And it was not impulsive. 8. Witnesses who could not speak. One of the most frustrating challenges for investigators. Some neighbors were terrified to talk, some feared retaliation, some were uncertain what they had seen, some had only rumors to share. Even people who knew something refused to fully speak. The mystery had grown social barriers, fear, silence, and intimidation that acted as invisible walls around the truth. 9. The investigation hits a psychological barrier. By now, it became clear that evidence wasn't the only obstacle. The case challenged investigators on a psychological level. Frustration at missing clues, tension from contradictory statements, anxiety about the missing envelope, and vague awareness of a possible orchestrated disappearance. Each of these factors slowed progress. The investigators weren't just chasing evidence. They were chasing a meticulously hidden truth that seemed to anticipate their every move. 10. The realization. Someone knew too much. The overarching conclusion of Chapter 7. Someone had planned this disappearance carefully. Someone controlled what Lakshmi knew and what she carried. Someone manipulated her actions and possibly her fate. The evidence refused to speak, but it whispered a chilling possibility. Lakshmi's vanishing was not an accident. It was orchestrated, calculated, and executed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Breaking the silence. Clues that emerged after years. After months of dead ends, contradictions, and whispers, the investigation into Lakshmi's disappearance took a subtle but crucial turn. Sometimes in cases like these, progress does not come from immediate evidence. It comes from persistence, patience, and the courage of someone finally speaking up. This chapter chronicles how investigators began to uncover the threads that had been hidden in plain sight and the small revelations that would change the direction of the case. 1. Revisiting old witnesses. Months after the disappearance, investigators revisited witnesses with a new approach. Neighbors, initially reluctant to speak, were contacted individually in private. Some remembered small details they hadn't previously shared, fearing repercussions. One young woman reported seeing a man forcefully guiding Lakshmi into a vehicle, a sight she had initially dismissed as imagination. These small recollections, when combined, began to form a cohesive picture. Lakshmi had likely been intercepted intentionally. 2. The employer's contradictions resurface. Re-interviewing the employer and family brought subtle inconsistencies to light. The employer initially said Lakshmi left early on the evening of her disappearance. Later, he admitted he had no exact memory of the time. The son claimed he had no idea about the brown envelope, but neighbors remembered seeing him near her room days before. Investigators began to suspect that someone close to her may have been hiding knowledge, even if not directly responsible. 3. Digital footprints. The burner phone revealed its secrets. Months into the investigation, the police traced the burner phone used to contact Lakshmi. It was linked to a prepaid SIM purchased in a nearby town, CCTV from the vendor showed a man buying the sim while wearing a cap and sunglasses. The purchase was made days before her disappearance. Though the man remained unidentified, this discovery indicated premeditation. Someone had orchestrated contact and timing carefully, ensuring no trace was left behind. 4. The brown envelope re-examined. Investigators turned their attention to the mysterious brown envelope. Forensic experts could not recover it from the scene, but handwriting analysis from similar envelopes in the neighborhood hinted it may have contained letters or money intended for a third party. The envelope wasn't just a mundane object. It represented a hidden transaction, threat, or warning, likely central to why she vanished. 5. Village clues and family secrets. Returning to Lakshmi's village, investigators began asking specific, targeted questions. Slowly, a pattern emerged. She had confided in a relative about being threatened over money owed by someone unknown. Some relatives initially denied any contact, but further questioning revealed short, cryptic letters she had written to her family. The letters hinted at fear of retribution and possibly being coerced into actions she didn't want. For the first time, investigators had a tangible motive framework: fear, financial pressure, and a hidden threat. 6. The temple volunteer's admission. After months of silence, the temple volunteer came forward with a revelation. Lakshmi had repeatedly asked him for advice about someone pressuring her. He had initially not spoken out of fear, both for himself and for Lakshmi. He admitted that she had told him she feared being forced into something against her will. This confession added emotional context to the otherwise clinical investigation, highlighting that Lakshmi had been under prolonged stress and threat before her disappearance. 7. The unseen figure. Identity at last? A breakthrough came from a neighbor who had previously been silent. She remembered a man near Lakshmi's room that night, a figure she had not reported earlier out of fear. Investigators cross-referenced this description with the burner phone sim purchase. The composite sketch was created, giving the first visual clue to the mysterious orchestrator. Suddenly, the investigation had direction. The shadows were forming into something tangible. 8. Evidence from the employer's staff. Re-interviewing the household staff uncovered subtle but important details. Some staff remembered seeing Lakshmi unusually anxious days before her disappearance, that a maid reported that a man, unfamiliar to them, had lingered around the house, that a driver recalled overhearing a whispered argument involving Lakshmi and an unknown individual. Pieces of a puzzle began to interconnect. The disappearance was not spontaneous but carefully staged. 9. Psychological insights into her behavior. Investigators consulted experts to understand Lakshmi's reactions. She had been under sustained stress from multiple sources. Her behavior, the hurried steps, guarded envelope, and avoidance of certain people, indicated acute fear and anticipation. The experts suggested she may have been preparing for confrontation, perhaps hoping to negotiate, escape, or hide. This lens reframed the disappearance. It was not just a crime scene problem, but a human story of fear, secrecy, and coercion. 10. Turning the case around. By the end of Chapter 8, the investigation had finally linked her last movements to key witnesses, identified potential suspects, mapped the chain of threats surrounding her, recovered behavioral, emotional, and circumstantial evidence. The pieces were beginning to align, transforming the cold, chaotic mystery into an actionable investigation. Yet, while progress had been made, the question remained: who orchestrated her disappearance and why? The answers were still just out of reach, lingering in the shadows of 2005, waiting to surface. Patterns, motives, and the web of suspects. By this stage, investigators had collected fragments, witness accounts, suspicious behavior, a mysterious burner phone, and the vanished brown envelope. Yet these pieces alone weren't enough. To make sense of Lakshmi's disappearance, they needed to identify patterns and connect motives to possible actors. Chapter 9 focuses on understanding the invisible web surrounding Lakshmi, revealing the deeper forces at play. 1. Connecting the dots. Investigators reviewed every statement, action, and sighting. The unidentified man near her room, the burner phone purchased days before her, sudden withdrawal, and secretive behavior, the brown envelope she carried. Suddenly, a pattern emerged. Her disappearance was not random. Each clue pointed to a coordinated effort by someone aware of her routines, fears, and vulnerabilities. 2. The suspects and their possible motives. By now, the investigation focused on a short list of individuals. A. Employer's family. Motive: financial or reputational concerns. Opportunity: daily access to her routine's behavior, subtle contradictions, and evasiveness. B. Landlord. Motive: potential leverage over her opportunity, spare key to her room behavior, nervous and inconsistent statements. C. Temple volunteer. Motive: unclear but closely involved with Lakshmi's secret fears. Opportunity: private meetings and visits. Behavior: delayed confession and incomplete information. D. Unknown male from Lane and Burner Sim. Motive: linked to threats, demands, or manipulation. Opportunity: presence at multiple key locations. Behavior: unseen, ghost-like, deliberate. Each suspect alone raised questions. Together, they formed a complex web of overlapping interests. 3. Financial pressure and hidden transactions. Investigators revisited her financial records. Unexpected withdrawals from locations. She rarely visited envelopes of cash or letters sent to unknown parties, a potential connection to someone demanding money. The brown envelope she guarded may have been the critical leverage. Whoever had knowledge of its contents would have had both motive and opportunity to control her actions, perhaps even to orchestrate her disappearance. 4. Fear as a driving force. A psychologist consulted on the case emphasized, people who disappear under duress don't vanish randomly. They are usually reacting to extreme fear, fear of reprisal, exposure, or danger. In Lakshmi's case, her behaviors, hurried steps, avoiding certain individuals, carrying the envelope, confiding selectively, all indicated pre-existing fear. The challenge was determining who or what she feared most, because that figure likely held the key to her disappearance. 5. Community observations. Neighbors reported noticing patterns in the days leading up to the disappearance. Strange vehicles lingering near her street, unknown individuals asking about her routine, sudden quiet in her lane, as if people were wary of surveillance. This suggested an orchestrated watch. Someone had been monitoring her, possibly plotting the exact night and time of her disappearance. 6. Patterns of behavior and timing. By analyzing her last movements, she left work early, visited a shop near her room, carried her envelope, and bag was seen pacing, looking nervous. Investigators noted that her actions were reactive, but also deliberate. She may have been trying to avoid someone, she may have anticipated an encounter, she may have been preparing for an escape. The timing of the burner phone call aligned perfectly with these actions, suggesting careful orchestration. 7. Contradictions and red herrings. Some witness statements initially seemed promising, but deeper investigation revealed contradictions. The neighbor who claimed to see her near the bus stand had the wrong time. The shopkeeper's sighting conflicted with the employer's account. One relative's story changed under questioning. Red herrings threatened to derail the investigation, but patterns emerged when contradictions were cross-checked against independent evidence, revealing true consistencies hidden beneath chaos. 8. Emerging connections between suspects. Through detailed mapping of interactions, the temple volunteer was the last known confidant of Lakshmi. The unknown male might have been connected to threats implied in the envelope. The landlord and employer had overlapping access to her room and daily routines. A network of overlapping opportunities and motives became visible. Each person wasn't acting alone, but rather within a system that surrounded Lakshmi, constraining her choices. 9. The critical insight. By the end of Chapter 9, investigators concluded Lakshmi didn't just vanish. She was part of a carefully orchestrated disappearance, influenced by fear, manipulation, and threats. Every action she took every step she moved was within a web that someone else had constructed. This was a turning point. From random speculation to strategic reconstruction of events, investigators were finally thinking like those who orchestrated the disappearance. 10. Preparing for the breakthrough. Chapter 9 closes on a tense note. Investigators now had patterns, suspects, motives, and timings aligned. The final step, turning these patterns into actionable evidence, would be crucial in Chapter 10. Questions loomed. Who held the most control over her fate? Could they locate the brown envelope or the missing bag? Was there a single orchestrator or a network of conspirators? The answers were close, closer than anyone had anticipated, but still shrouded in the shadows of 2005. The breakthrough, unraveling the web. By Chapter 10, months of painstaking investigation had led to a collection of critical pieces. Witness accounts, the mysterious burner phone, the vanished brown envelope, and overlapping suspect networks. What had once been a chaotic puzzle was finally showing the outlines of a calculated disappearance. This chapter focuses on the breakthrough, the moment when the web begins to unravel. 1. Revisiting the evidence. Investigators gathered all known evidence. Timeline of her last movements, conflicting witness statements, financial anomalies, burner phone records, behavioral patterns indicating fear. They began to see the connections clearly. Each lead intersected with another, forming a map of opportunity, motive, and orchestration. 2. Tracking the burner phone. The breakthrough came when authorities cross-referenced SIM purchase locations with her last known movements, identified a man matching the previously described unknown figure from the lane, discovered that he had close ties to individuals in Lakshmi's social and work networks. The burner phone had been the key thread, connecting the unknown male to the envelope and ultimately to her disappearance. 3. The brown envelope revealed. Investigators finally located the brown envelope. Contained letters and cash related to a debt dispute or blackmail scheme linked to both village relatives and city-based contacts. This revelation clarified her fear. She wasn't running randomly. She was being manipulated, coerced, and potentially threatened by a hidden network exploiting her position. 4. Witness collaboration. Previously silent witnesses began cooperating. Neighbors confirmed seeing the unknown man and his vehicle multiple times. Some staff disclosed conversations they initially withheld. Village relatives revealed letters and messages that confirmed financial pressure. These combined testimonies helped pinpoint who had orchestrated the disappearance and the probable method. 5. The employer's role clarified. Re-examination showed the employer's family had indirect involvement, mostly through omission and oversight rather than direct action. They had unknowingly facilitated access by keeping spare keys and allowing free movement around Lakshmi's routines while not perpetrators. Their negligence allowed orchestrators to act undetected. This distinction was crucial. Lakshmi's disappearance wasn't caused solely by those closest to her, but by outsiders exploiting gaps in her environment. 6. Identifying the orchestrator. The investigation revealed a coordinated network. The unknown man from the lane and burner phone was central. He was connected to relatives in the village who had financial leverage over Lakshmi. Possible accomplices included intermediaries within the city who had access to her envelope. Investigators concluded that Lakshmi had been intentionally isolated and monitored, her fear and secrecy manipulated to enable the disappearance. 7. Reconstructing the night. With all evidence in place, authorities could recreate the night. Lakshmi left work slightly early, carrying her envelope. The orchestrator, tracking her movements via observation and prior planning, intercepted her near her room. She may have resisted briefly, as suggested by muffled sounds reported by neighbors. The orchestrator removed her bag and envelope, ensuring minimal traces. Witness accounts, previously contradictory, now fit together. Each represented a different piece of a well-executed plan. The night of disappearance was not chaotic. It was methodical, deliberate, and precise. 8. Uncovering the motive. The motive emerged clearly. Financial leverage and coercion, fear, manipulation, potential concealment of wrongdoing within her family or village, possibly exploitation of her vulnerable status as a young housemaid. The brown envelope symbolized the key leverage point, and her orchestrators had ensured it remained hidden, and in doing so, controlled the sequence of events. 9. The resolution path. While Lakshmi was never immediately found, Chapter 10 set the stage for identifying all individuals involved, recovering her possessions, understanding her behavior through a lens of fear and coercion, closing the investigation's most significant gaps. This chapter marks the pivot from mystery to understanding, where patterns become answers and shadows gain shape. 10. The human side of the case. Finally, the investigation recognized Lakshmi's fear was genuine, sustained, and systematically exploited. Her disappearance was a combination of human malice, negligence, and manipulation. Every witness, every subtle clue, every red herring contributed to a story of vulnerability and survival. Aftermath and lingering shadows. By now, the investigation into Lakshmi's disappearance had uncovered patterns, motives, and key orchestrators. But while facts had been clarified, the consequences of her vanishing stretched far beyond the investigation. This chapter explores the aftermath, the emotional, social, and institutional impacts that lingered long after the initial event. 1. The family left behind. Lakshmi's family endured a mixture of grief, confusion, and guilt. Relatives struggled with unanswered questions. Why did no one prevent her disappearance? Letters and messages revealed her fear and attempts to communicate, fragments that added both clarity and pain. Her family faced social scrutiny, with neighbors questioning their knowledge or involvement. Even when investigators identified orchestrators, the emotional toll on her loved ones remained unmeasurable. 2. Community shock and rumors. The village and city communities reacted in different ways. Rumors spread rapidly, distorting facts. Some claimed she ran away voluntarily. Others accused family members or employers. Neighbors were torn between fear and curiosity. Some who had previously withheld information began to speak, but too late to aid in real-time rescue. The social impact created barriers to justice, complicating the process for investigators and amplifying the mystery. 3. Legal and investigative challenges. Despite progress in identifying orchestrators, the case faced significant legal and investigative hurdles. Lack of physical evidence made prosecution difficult. Conflicting witness statements required careful corroboration. The orchestrators used gaps in law enforcement and documentation to evade immediate accountability. Investigators were able to build a circumstantial case, but the absence of a body or concrete evidence left many questions unresolved. 4. Institutional reflections. The case exposed vulnerabilities in law enforcement and social oversight. Failure to act on early warning signs, reliance on witness memory, without proactive evidence collection, limited access to digital and forensic tracking. Authorities realized that missing person cases with subtle threats require rapid, multidimensional responses, a lesson hard learned through Lakshmi's case. 5. The orchestrators and their evasion. Though investigators mapped a network of actors involved in her disappearance, some individuals evaded capture or full disclosure. Fear, collusion, and careful planning allowed them to manipulate the investigation temporarily. The burner phone, the brown envelope, and other orchestrated elements ensured they remained one step ahead. Even with insights, the vanishing was partially complete, demonstrating the power of calculated manipulation. 6. The psychological impact. For Lakshmi herself, had she survived or been hidden, months of fear, coercion, and confinement would have left profound psychological scars. Isolation from family and familiar environments amplified trauma. Her behavior, previously misinterpreted as secretive or anxious, was now understood as coping mechanisms under duress. This dimension emphasized that the human consequences of such cases extend beyond physical disappearance. 7. The community and law enforcement lessons. The case triggered broader reflections. The importance of early response to missing person alerts, coordinated information sharing across agencies, proactive questioning, and protection of vulnerable individuals, awareness that subtle threats and coercion can lead to disappearances just as effectively as overt violence. These lessons, though learned too late for Lakshmi, influence policies and investigative approaches in subsequent cases. 8. Lingering questions. Even after breakthroughs, some questions persisted. Was the network of orchestrators fully identified? Did all individuals involved act independently? Or were there additional unseen players? Was the brown envelope the only leverage used, or part of a larger coercive scheme? Had justice been fully served, or only partially revealed? The absence of definitive answers kept the mystery alive, lingering in the minds of investigators, family, and community alike. 9. Reflection on human vulnerability. Chapter 11 emphasizes the broader human lesson. Vulnerable individuals, in this case a young housemaid, can be manipulated by power, fear, and secrecy. Social structures, family dynamics, and community oversight play crucial roles in protection or exposure. Even a well-executed investigation cannot fully undo the emotional and psychological impact. The case of Lakshmi becomes a cautionary tale about awareness, vigilance, and empathy. 10. Closing thoughts. The disappearance of Lakshmi wasn't just a criminal case. It was a story of human complexity, coercion, and fear. Investigators pieced together patterns, motives, and orchestrators' communities faced social and psychological repercussions. Families endured trauma, and uncertainty. Justice was partially achieved, but many threads remained unresolved. Chapter 11 closes with the recognition that while facts illuminate the past, the shadows of fear, secrecy, and human vulnerability continue to linger. A somber reminder that some mysteries leave lasting impressions beyond resolution. Secrets buried in plain sight. The enigma of Lakshmi's vanishing. 1. A disappearance that defied time. Lakshmi's vanishing remained shrouded in uncertainty. Patterns of observation, fear, and manipulation suggested deliberate orchestration. The brown envelope and burner phone created a mystery only partially solved. Even after identification of key players, many questions lingered. The disappearance retained its enigmatic quality. What truly happened that night remains a shadowed story. 2. The invisible web. The investigation revealed a network of influence. Outsiders exploiting her vulnerability, village relatives exerting pressure, indirectly observers who watched without intervention. Yet the precise dynamics, intentions, and full scope of influence remained elusive, reinforcing the mystique of her vanishing. 3. Clues that whisper, not shout. The case was defined by subtle evidence. Behavioral cues and fear signals, witness memories slowly surfacing after months, objects like the envelope and bag that carried hidden significance. These clues whispered secrets, but never fully revealed the whole story. Mystery thrives in the gaps left by incomplete answers. 4. The human element of mystery. Beyond logistics and timelines, the enigma rested on human choices. Lakshmi's silence, selective confiding, and careful movements, observers' fear, hesitation, and partial cooperation, perpetrators' planning, misdirection, and manipulation. The disappearance was a testament to how human psychology shapes mysteries and keeps them unsolved for years. 5. Lingering questions. Even as investigation reconstructed events, several questions remained unanswered. Was there a larger network orchestrating the disappearance? Did any accomplices remain unidentified? Were threats fully understood, or were their hidden motives still buried? These unanswered questions preserve the story's haunting, unresolved quality. 6. Closing reflections. Chapter 12 concludes with the ultimate message of mystery. Not all stories are fully revealed. Fear, secrecy, and human cunning can leave lasting enigmas. The case of Lakshmi reminds us that some truths are hidden in plain sight, leaving shadows for generations to ponder. The final note is one of reflection, urging viewers to consider vigilance, empathy, and curiosity. The the tools needed to uncover mysteries lurking behind ordinary lives. As our journey through Lakshmi's vanishing comes to a close, we are left with more questions than answers. Her disappearance, cloaked in secrecy, manipulation, and fear, reminds us that some mysteries are designed to endure. Though patterns have been traced and key orchestrators identified, many threads remain hidden. The brown envelope, the burner phone, and the whispers of those too afraid to speak. This is the essence of mystery. Truths are partial, shadows linger, and curiosity must continue. If this story captivated you, don't let it end here. Like, share, and comment to keep the conversation alive. Engage with the mystery, challenge the narratives, and speculate responsibly. Your thoughts could illuminate overlooked details. We also welcome your critique. It sharpens our investigations and storytelling. Every interaction ensures that the enigmas of the past are not lost to time, and that mysteries like Lakshmi's continuing to intrigue and educate. Thank you for watching Mystery Vault 80, where the shadows of unsolved cases are explored, one story at a time.